Welcome everybody to Girl, Some Guys in the Movie. And today we are watching. We just finished watching The Last Unicorn from 1982, a Rankin Bass feature with Jeff Bridges and Mia Farrow. Thank you, Crafting Gamer and Six Nations, for recommending this film. And me and Janet, I don't believe we've seen this one, have we?
I saw it, but I didn't see it at the movie theater. I saw it
No.
years and years later, and I cried almost as much as I did the first time I saw it this time. So I just thought it was beautiful. It's a beautiful movie, I think.
I love the animation in this film.
Yeah, it was a wonderful
This is
fairy
an
tale.
awesome film. It's hit me several times in the last couple of years. I just recently watched it Thursday with my aunt. She's more into true crime and Hallmark movies, so it wasn't the same experience for her. She enjoyed it, but didn't quite follow it. And I saw this in the theater and was traumatized by all the harpy and the Red Bull and all that. But it was good. And like I said earlier, my mom, she has other opinions, but she was a parent at a matinee back in the 80s when ungodly kids were screaming and yelling and crying and fussing. And so your mileage may vary depending on the decade and timing of seeing this movie. But it's good.
I just thought it was filled
Rankin
with
Bass film.
awe and wonder of a child. It had a very
Mhm.
childlike point of view coming from the unicorn, which I loved. And then when Molly came in, she gave the adult perspective of a young woman. Because I started crying when she saw the unicorn and said, "Where have you been? What took you so long? Why did you wait to come and see me once I was basically old and not a young virgin?" I just thought that was just very moving for me, that part.
I have a we have a scene
Mhm.
from we were able to actually get footage of what happened with Six Nations and his mom in that movie theater, and here it is.
Yep, that was basically it.
Oh my gosh,
You're welcome.
that
So
was hilarious.
matinees. Don't take your kid to a matinee film if you don't want to have a fucking riot going on.
And I agree, crafting. I get emotional watching this movie every once in a while.
It's got
I,
some.
I got emotional quite a few times
I
because it
must
had
be.
a wonderful story.
It's that nostalgia punch right to the dick. Like,
I must have zero heart.
because it's a time
Right.
where like life was a lot simpler. I was 5 years old and I loved The Hobbit. We watched it on TV. I had the VHS, and then seeing this and just remembering back during that time when things were a lot simpler and a lot less wacky, especially nowadays.
But why do you think you don't have a heart?
Because I didn't cry at all throughout this movie. I thought it was
But
really well
you're
done.
already an adult. You didn't
I,
have it inspire you as a child like we did when we were young.
I didn't realize you saw this when you were young, but when this movie came out, I I didn't realize that. I thought maybe you had said, "Oh, I saw it on TV." So maybe when Janet says on TV, is that like 5 years ago? Is that like 7 years ago?
Now, I was young enough to where I was, I could understand a lot of it from a young love perspective, in awe of one day your prince will come, all that stuff. I thought it was a beautiful romantic fairy tale, and I love fairy tales. So when she became a woman because she was afraid of the bull, And you saw how easy she was.
Oh God, that song.
Yeah, I was gonna say I downloaded this song of the "I'm Alive," her being the last unicorn.
Oh, the Last Unicorn
I
song is awesome.
downloaded
The Mia
Music
Farrow and
Yes,
Jeff
by
Bridges
America.
duet and
So
her
it was
song,
real-
like that's my only complaint about the movie.
Oh, I know. You said they're singing.
That song of Mia Farrow and Jeff Bridges
Like-
probably shouldn't.
It's not a knock on them. Like, God bless them. Jeff Bridges loved the book. Like him and
Oh
Christopher
yeah,
Lee both came in with their own copies.
they showed up. They showed up to
Jeff was gonna do the
filming or
movie
to the
for free.
recording with their own book copies, right? Talking about what parts they like
Yeah.
best, and Lee's like, you have to have this scene and this scene. These words, these quotes must be in the film. And then you have Jeff Bridges, who he's like, I'll do the movie for free. I love this book. So, and
Yeah.
those are things you can just find on the trivia pages of IMDb. So, I mean,
There a tornado.
Another fun fact is that Schmedrick,
Mhm.
or he was in his own series of bedtime stories that Peter S. Beagle would tell his children about a bumbling wizard, the world's worst magician. And so that character was well fleshed out long before even being in the 1968 novel.
For some odd reason, when I watched this movie, I felt like Jimmy Durante. He was the missing piece, because to me, Schmedrick could have been voiced by Mr. the Schnozzola, because he had done a bunch of other Rankin Bass stuff back in like the 60s. I think some of the Christmas specials with the marionettes.
Mhm.
And he was a good friend of the directors, and this movie would have benefited greatly from Jimmy Durante, but he had passed on 2 years before the film was released. So take that for what you will. I was hearing that in certain parts, and I was thinking Schmedrick would have been perfect if voiced by Durante. And I know that sounds like Bruce's wish list again. What else do you wish for? No Islam. Oh, shit, did I say that? I'm not sorry. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, and the book also predates the rape scene that Evil Dead is so famous for.
Yes.
What do you mean?
Well, technically rape.
Yeah.
It's more of a
tree
struggle cuddle.
The tree.
Oh, with the tree.
They
I thought
went
that
on
was hilarious.
on it.
What was funny is this is the difference between when I did see it, and I'd have to go back and look and see what year it was when I saw it. But when I saw it before, I saw it as an innocent, beautiful fairy tale. Like, I don't know. That's all I remember it. But when I saw it this time, and I saw the whole scene where his face is in her boobies, in her cleavage, and all that, I was like going, "What the? It was so sexual." You know what I mean? It came across totally sexual this time, but I don't remember I never felt anything dirty at all the first time I saw it. So that was different for me, and that just shows you the influence of your life and what you've gone through to see a movie from when you first saw it in a young, fresh way, and then see it as an adult when you've been there, done that type of stuff. You don't see it the same way anymore. So I was very taken aback by that one scene. That was, it seemed like it took forever to get over
The
it.
book isn't as sexual. It's more of a tongue-in-cheek because it's a fairy tale and a parody of fairy tales. That's why the dialogue's all funky and weird. And so you can't get a grasp of like medievalness or ancient times, days of yore type stuff. But then like you got the funny situation where he's trying to break himself free of the bindings on the tree, and then the tree comes to life, and he's like, "Oh, we'll die together," as there's like a lightning storm, and finally the unicorn goes and saves him. So the animators kind of like upped it up to 11 on
Yeah,
that.
definitely. I mean, I'm not saying it was. If I was older and had been through more, I guess when
Oh yeah,
life had been different, I would probably would have laughed through the whole thing. So I think I can see why your mom was not happy with a few things when you said your mom didn't enjoy the movie.
my mother,
Was that part
like,
of it?
the content wasn't an issue because like my parents were 80s parents, and it was like their thing was like, do you really want to see this? And if I said yes, then they're like, okay, here you go. If it punches you in the face, you're gonna get punched
Would
in
your
the face.
parents have taken you to see what was the other one? South Park the movie? If you'd asked.
Oh, I don't doubt it.
I know, but when you were
I mean, they took me to go see Conan the Barbarian when it
Okay.
came out, and I was
yeah,
the same
'cause I
age,
remember going to see that movie and people had
and people were getting decapitated right and left. There was that awesome sex scene with the witch, but I didn't
threw
know
him into
anything
the
about
fire.
sex. So I was
He
like,
threw
what are they
her
doing?
into the fire.
And my stepdad's like, oh, they're wrestling. And I'm like, okay, they're wrestling. And then she gets chucked into the fire and turns into a will-o-wisp and flies off, which kind of scared the shit out of me. But, the trauma doesn't kill you. It only makes you stronger, right?
Yeah, apparently.
Uh,
It was,
my mom's
I
whole
believe-
issue was just a theater full of screaming, crying kids. And she couldn't handle it.
but I loved the
And I don't blame her.
character of Molly Grew. Is that what her name was?
yeah, she's played by Tammy Grimes. That
I
she's
absolutely
like the glue
great
that
character. She
she's-
humanized it. So
she completely made this movie. Her performance completely made this film because Mia Farrow is tragic. Jeff Bridges plays a very like unaware hero or unequipped hero.
well, he was a young man raised
Yeah.
basically by his father, because we don't know
Yeah.
what happened to his mother, alone with a father who has no empathy and no joy in his life, and he's just old and decrepit and hates everything. So the fact that his son was even as kind and generous as he was in this story was, my heart broke for him, because his father was just dead basically on the inside. So something very tragic had happened to him to cause him to be so dead, that when he looked down from above in the Capitol to see his son run over by the Red Bull that he created, basically, he just was like, oh well, he didn't give a shit. And it was tragic for me. I cried a little bit when that part came on, simply for the fact that he sacrificed himself for love of a woman he would never have, and his own father just went. I don't know. My heart broke for him. So that was really sad for me to see that.
I felt like Tammy Grimes completely sold this film, and from what I've been able to gather, this movie was recorded voice-wise. They did all their VR or the voice recording stuff for like over the course of 4 days, or maybe like just a work week. They got together at the studio. Everybody had coffee, chips, whatever. They got along great, and then bam, movie is pretty much all right. Just animate it and score it, and we'll collect the checks, and that's about it. But Tammy Grimes, she's my favorite. She did my favorite character in this movie with Molly.
Yeah, she was so.
She was the everyman.
She
Kind of
was
character.
adorable, because when the young sorcerer makes Robin Hood and Maid Marian, and they just walking around, it's so magical for her that she's just, even though she knows it isn't real, she runs after them through the woods in her childlike manner of in awe of what she's seeing. Her the woman she's always dreamed of as a young girl, read the stories, and getting to run after her and maybe have a conversation with someone she knew doesn't even exist. I just thought that was wonderful, because every one of us had childlike thoughts like that when we were young, playing in the woods as sword fighters or whatever, and just to be able to have something like that come to life in front of you would be just mesmerizing. And she even though it was just her voice to do it, to me, I cracked up crying a couple times, just simply because of her. When she said, "What have you done? What have you done?" And when she was changed into a woman, the young unicorn girl, I was like very, very emotional over that. And the fact when she said, where have you been? Where have you been? Why are you coming to me now? That type of thing. It was just, she just did such a good job. Her character was my favorite in this movie. She made it real for me.
We do have a small bit of breaking celebrity news that I just saw that
About his passing.
Richard Chamberlain.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, I mean, 90 years old. The guy lived a great life. He lived the life that he wanted to, and he had a lot of good works that we get to enjoy throughout time. Cheers to you, Mr. Chamberlain. Thank you for a life well lived.
Yeah, he was a wonderful actor.
Yeah, he was. Shogun.
Another thing I wanted to add real quick before I forget was the fact that from the very beginning of the opening scene with the band America singing the music and stuff, I just loved it. I just thought it was appropriate for this actual movie. And the fact that they got no credit for it because it said uncredited when I went and looked it up. So that means they got paid, but they got paid like a flat rate. You know what I mean? On a check or whatever. I don't think they get residuals when you're on
when you're uncredited. I don't think that happens.
Yeah. So the fact they did that, and I didn't know who it was. I didn't know who sang the music. I loved it, and I remember singing along to it. But this time when I heard it, I got, just like what you said, Six Nations, I got very emotional inside. I just felt, I don't know, I can't explain it. It wasn't giddy and it wasn't sadness. It was like a sense of joy. That's kind of weird, but it was beautiful. It was a beautiful, beautiful movie. I just loved it. And I'm going to watch it again, without all this stuff, so I can, on the big screen, and so I can, love it again because I think it was so good. It's very romantic and fanciful. You know what I mean? It just makes me want to go put on a princess dress and just run around out in the woods. I don't know if that makes, I know that sounds stupid, but
that doesn't make sense. But if you want to go do that, we're not going to stop you.
Well, we're under a tornado watch right now, so I'm not going to do it. But that's what it made me feel like.
Janet gets lost, goes missing. What happened to Janet? She's in the land of the Goblin King. Magical fucking storm.
Oh, I don't know, but it was just beautiful. It was even the cartoon was just fanciful. It was just mesmerizing. I just loved it. I thought it was wonderful. And even though I never read the book, because when you shared that stuff in Gilded earlier, I was asking you about it because now I really would think about sitting down and reading it. Now that I've seen this again, because I've been like it's like someone took some car battery and just jabbed me with it and gave me a little jolt or something, because it's like it rejuvenated me on how wonderful and fantastical this story was. It's like having a romantic dream, basically, and I don't know. Even though
it's a short read.
Died, she
the copy that I gave you guys is the deluxe version.
Yeah.
So it has the original, The Last Unicorn, and then it also has the 2004 sequel, which almost never happened.
Mm-hmm.
Beagle was kind of debating on doing that, and then finally he, after decades of input from fans, like story,
I just
a parody of a fairy tale and a fairy tale combined. It's kind of like a tongue-in-cheek thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it stemmed from stuff that he was doing with his kids. And so in his early 20s, he goes to write the story, and it took him years to finish. And then finally in 1968, he gets it done. And then that was it. And then he was asked to do an animated version of it. And at first he didn't want to do it. But he got together with the directors and producers and He was like, "Oh, okay, I see what you're doing. Yeah, let's go ahead and do this." And then he thought, "One and done. That's another chapter of my life complete." But people kept coming up to him at book signing conventions over the years,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, I grew up with this, or my kids grew up with this, or my grandkids grew up with this, or there was like two big burly Mexican dudes who were like, we grew up in an abusive home,
Mm-hmm.
and your movie or your book, saved us. And so he kind of rethought about it. It was like really weird. Like he didn't really think much about the story after that. And then when everybody was like gushing over it and just being total emo retarded, he had a change of heart, and it kind of grew on him. It's like how most novelists, they go, yeah, I did this book, but it wasn't my greatest work, and I had other projects involved.
What did he say?
And now I like it.
About?
Hmm?
Did he say anything about why he wrote this story? What happened to him, or was it a dream, or what, to come up with the
Not
idea?
in the video interviews that I've seen on YouTube.
Oh.
Basically like a Q&A session, and he kind of briefly goes over it. But like I said earlier, some of the characters were in his children's bedtime stories. So, this guy's like the American version of Tolkien. And he wanted to do a good mythology, but at the same time keep it kind of tongue-in-cheek. And it kind of exploded way beyond what he expected it to be. And so in 2004, he writes, which is the story of a young girl whose village gets attacked by a griffin. And so she goes to now King Lear to defeat the griffin and save the village because it was eating the livestock. Now it's going after the kids. And she runs into Molly and Schmendrick, and there's the unicorn. And I won't go and ruin the story for you, but it's a kind of a reunion of old characters, and it's fairly decent. It's a short read.
Well,
under 200 pages.
I read a snippet somebody had written about what they thought about the movie when they asked him, and he said that The Last Unicorn will endure as a film for reasons both intellectual and aesthetic. It's full of rich ideas and revisions of outdated sexist stereotypes, and thereby feels more modern than many animated classics. I just thought that was very interesting, the way that they worded that. But listening to it this time, listening to the voices and knowing who they were, the voice, because when the first time I saw it, I didn't know who any of these people were. I didn't really pay attention to it. Now, I did recognize the King's voice because I watched tons of those black and white old movies with my dad on Saturday night, on the Spook Thrill channel. And I recognized him as one of the, the vampire hunters or somebody. I just remembered that voice. So I remembered that. But when I looked up who the other people were, like for the young prince, and now I know who he was, the whole time I'm watching it, I'm picturing those characters, their faces, even though I'm seeing the cartoon. Now, I didn't know the actress that played Molly. I didn't know who that is. I don't know if I've seen her or whatever, but I didn't know her name.
She's a starlet from like the golden age of Hollywood, like 1940s, 50s.
Oh, I just loved her character. She was so good. Did they give like an Academy Awards for voices, for voice acting back then?
No, this movie did not get that level of love back then.
Oh, I loved her. I just loved her.
Loved. This movie was loved by critics. This movie was not loved by the audience. It was brought in. It hit its stride in the video rental market, but it lost money. It only made like $5.5 million at the box office.
which explains why
The whole time.
the studio closed and they jumped ship to
It made a
form Studio
5.2
Ghibli.
million, 5.2 million American box office.
I mean, total, even to up till today.
Box office. That's just the release.
Well, I wonder how much money it's made. Did it to me? I would. This is a movie I would want to sit down with my kids and watch. You know what I mean? I still think it's that good. Now, the one scene with the tree, I might have to, depending on how old they are, to say, well, now if he was turned and faced the other direction, it probably wouldn't be in as me would going, what the. I'm just still shocked that when I first saw it, I didn't think anything of it. It was so innocent to me. I didn't notice it. But this time when I watched it, I was like, what the? I just, it took me out of the movie.
Mortality is nothing compared to the love of a tree.
I know. It was just hilarious, but, in a naughty kind of way. I thought it was adorable.
The tree scene, like, yeah, that you can get away with like fast forwarding through that if your kid's like 10 years and younger. It's hard enough to grow up and not be a creepy pervert when you're a teenager.
Yeah.
Like, it's difficult because you're getting your balls drop, your dick gets bigger, your body's changing, your voice doesn't even sound like your voice, it sounds like your uncle's or something.
Freaky.
And then there you are with like your gangly self staring at your neighbor who now she's got boobs. And the last thing she wants is your attention while she's trying to figure out what the fuck she's doing with boobs.
Mm-hmm.
Being a kid sucks.
Yeah. It is.
Oh yeah, and the emotions. The emotions that you've got as a child, especially when you're going into teenager. Like, just think of like the bitterness you feel as a 30, 40, or 50-year-old person or older. Now exponentially just ratchet that up, and that's the teenager in you. Because like they have no basis to figure shit out. And Wolf Media, poor guy, he's like, I saw the tree and the harpy at 10 years old. Yeah, I get it. I'm sorry, dude. I wouldn't show this to my kid unless she was like older than 12. This movie is not a movie I would want to have like a youngster watch. It's a good movie, don't get me wrong, but like this is one of those tales like you don't explain to your kids about Auschwitz until they're like a teenager. You don't explain to your kids, because like you want to have them like get a little bit of history, but let them enjoy their childhood. And then around like 11, 12, you want to start giving them like the nasty parts of life because you don't want them to think they can stand on their own and go out and do shit their own, because then they just end up like doing some children's crusade bullshit and they disappear or they like, go away like Jodie Plauche's kid, like they just get caught by somebody who should never be around children. So, you give your kids like the nasty things, the bad history of the planet around 11 years old, and scare them into staying in the backyard a little longer. Just stay here. Just keep researching history, figure it out. And that way, whenever you turn 18, you can go out and be a man or be a woman. You understand that you might be cool, but you're not a badass, and the world will destroy you quickly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is definitely a product of the early 80s where people were just putting out stuff and there wasn't any real regulation or thought.
I don't need the government to regulate it. I need the parents to regulate it. I
didn't think it was. I don't think
that's why the soccer moms get all pissed off at the violence.
Yeah,
and they're like, we need to make cartoons educational. So they did the same shit, but then like the last 15 minutes they throw something educational into it. Which I'm cool with.
I love this movie, but this movie like firmly sits within the purview of the PTSD classic Watership Down.
Yes. Okay. So Watership Down.
So I don't know what you're talking
about. Oh boy! Guess what we're watching soon, Janet?
And the Plague Dogs. Have you seen the Plague Dogs?
What?
Plague Dogs.
I haven't seen Plague Dogs.
British animated film.
No.
It's got John Hurt in it. or I can't remember the other guy. Basically, they're dogs that escape a bio lab that may or may not have bubonic plague, and it was labeled as a kids movie.
No, I haven't seen that one either. But Wolf is saying that he saw Ellen Ripley's tailbone. I'm trying to remember what scene that was. Where he saw
Very end, when she gets when she's like getting undressed and getting ready to get in the sleep chamber, and then the fucking alien creeps out of the ventilation.
She had underwear and stuff
like,
on,
oh shit,
so.
and she had her underwear on. So like every guy that like watches that movie, that's kind of one of those puberty defining moments where your balls are like, oh, by the way, guess what? I exist, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like whenever, you know, Janet sees like young Brad Pitt in
well, just like I said,
movie.
I saw him in lots of movies, but I didn't think he was attractive. I mean, he wasn't, because I'm not really into blonde guys. So when I saw him in the cowboy hat standing on the bed with the blow dryer and stuff, I was like, damn, he looks pretty good. In that scene we were watching, I was like, shit, you know, it's not bad. But the thing is, you know, you just don't realize, you know, that you have taste in something until it comes in a certain package or is presented in a certain way. And then you're like, I didn't look at it that way before. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
we get it. I'm
sure you guys do the same thing. So
yeah, we are all the same. We all kind of feel the same way about this, just different people.
mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I will never tell you that I was physically attracted to Mia Farrow. And for me, like, I would have much rather had this movie with Jennifer Jason Leigh as the voice of Amalthea and the unicorn, because I like Jennifer Jason Leigh. I think she's an actress that we never got really a whole lot of. Amy Dolenz is another actress I would have been happy with, because even she can carry a tune a bit. Or who played Buddy in Family? Christy McNichol. You know, I would have been completely happy with anybody else but Mia Farrow. I know this sounds bad. I just don't like her, and it's nothing really against her. It's against her dad, and you know,
I don't know that much about who she is. I just remember being in a movie my mom thought petrified her was Rosemary's Baby, and that's the only thing I can tell you I've ever even heard that she was in. Besides this, I didn't realize she voiced the princess or whatever, the unicorn's voice. But Angela Lansbury, I liked her
first voice role.
Yeah, for her,
As
character,
Mommy
she did a
Fortuna,
really
yeah,
good job.
She
So,
nailed it.
And
yeah.
I'm sorry, it wasn't Mia Farrow's father, it's her husband. I can't stand Woody Allen. I fucking cannot stand Woody Allen to save
Wasn't
my
he like
life.
a young girl when he started being with her or something?
The adopted daughter they had, he kind of groomed.
Well, she was,
Wood chipper.
she was groomed too, wasn't she? At a young age. My mom,
Yeah.
I remember my mom talking about that she was like molested and tiny little young thing when she was pulled into movies and stuff like that. So I don't know. I don't know about that stuff, but my mom
Yeah,
talked.
they had an adoptee, and she's been married to Woody Allen since 1997. They have 2 kids. He
Oh,
divorced his wife,
his
Mia.
adopted daughter.
Yeah, he married his adopted daughter.
The Asian girl. It was an Asian girl, right?
Yep. I just like,
Yeah,
and I know that's really not even a fair assessment for me to not like Mia Farrow for, but because of her association with Woody Allen and how
she
was
probably
always
didn't realize he
talking-
was such a pedophile. You know, she thought he was just as happy as her about wanting to adopt a daughter
How can you look at Woody Allen and not be a goddamn pedophile?
because she was in love with him. I mean, people do fall in love, believe it or not. You know, and then she thought, well, he wants
Probably
to be
weird
as
is
much as
the
me.
strange place.
And you know, people are
I'll just
duped
leave
every
it at
day.
that.
Men and women are duped in relationships because they're not seeing them through normal eyes like your neighbor. They're seeing them through rose-colored glasses.
I look at Woody Allen and I knew he was a creep when I first saw him. Even the goddamn puppets from Spitting Image back in the 80s, they perfectly captured the creepiness of Woody Allen and like the idiocy of Mia Farrow, because like they just completely
Well, she was probably
satirized it.
young and dumb, and she just didn't pay attention.
And
That
she's
was a lot of us.
she was born in what, 45 or so, and she's probably a really nice lady, but I because of her association with Woody Allen, I can't stand her, and I know that's like just whatever you want to say, and that's fine. I'll accept your criticism, but I just don't care. I'm not losing sleep over it. And Mia Farrow, like, she's probably the weakest part of the movie for me, but
Mhm.
she's really, with her role in this movie, she does a good job. If I didn't recognize her voice, I would love the unicorn, because who doesn't want to believe in purity and all these things, and the myth of immortality? Who doesn't want to believe in that? And then when she gets transformed into a young lady and she's like, my God, I can feel myself aging.
Mhm.
I mean, I get it. As a 50-year-old man who, struggles to complete 45 push-ups, this is a really good film. But I
Mhm.
just, Mia Farrow, I get too personal on this.
Well,
I
I
just
can
don't like
understand.
her.
I'm going to give you that benefit of the doubt because I feel the same way about anybody or any movie that Jane Fonda's in. My dad told me horror stories about her when he was when I was young.
The bad thing is that, like,
Traitor to the
she
military.
is
So
so,
I won't watch anything she's in.
yeah, and the bad thing is that, like, there's part of me that wants to review Barbarella, the space movie that she did,
Mhm. It's like
and
sex, space,
yeah,
erotica,
yeah,
something.
and like,
It's
I
pretty.
mentioned that to some relatives that we were probably going to review that at some point, and I got punched, and I'm like, the fuck? They're like, you would actually want to talk about her and not like be condemning her soul to hell, I'm like, okay, I get it, like, no, you don't, because you didn't
It's
have friends going
impossible
off from high
nowadays.
school that
Mhm.
died because that dumb twat fucking did what she did. Okay, that's cool. So I'm not going to talk about uh, anything that Jane Fonda does.
Because I liked a couple of movies she was in, like 9 to 5, and a few other ones. Because other people watched it, and then I watched it with them, and I thought, well, this wasn't too bad. But then when I started thinking about her politics and stuff, I'm like, I just can't stand her.
And I
She's
mean,
Yeah, when I was younger, I could watch her, but now that I know about communism and how communists aren't people,
Mhm.
like, fuck that broad.
Yeah,
this,
she was
Sorry.
in Rosemary's Baby, right?
I believe she was.
Yeah, my mom said that was
Yeah.
the scariest movie she ever saw in her life. She had nightmares after watching it.
I haven't seen Rosemary's Baby. I haven't seen the full movie, but I've seen part of it about maybe 40, 50 years ago, 45 years ago. And my
Yeah.
mom came in and she just turned the TV off. You're not
Well,
watching
see,
that.
that's a movie I wouldn't mind watching. I mean, honestly, because it really, I mean, I don't remember. I think I watched it, but God, I was young when I watched it, so I really don't remember that much about it. But it scared my mom really bad. So that'd be a movie that I'd be interested in watching to find out why my mom had nightmares. We
Uh,
just watched it.
I really think that the evil satanic movies of the late 60s and early 70s really did a lot in forming the opinions of the parents of Gen X, because we kind of endured some BS where, like, because of crappy parenting or Phil Donahue or Sally Jesse Raphael, the bad the things that parents couldn't control, or the influences parents didn't, quote unquote,
Mhm.
like heavy metal, Judas Priest, Dungeons and Dragons, all that got labeled into this giant pile of satanic panic.
Yeah.
And it's not. I'm not trying to slam on Roman Polanski for his filmmaking. There's other reasons I slam him, but like, he's made an indelible mark on Hollywood with the films he's got. And there were other movies kind of around that, about the same time, like The Exorcist, The Omen, that when they came out, they just kind of contributed to the hysteria. I mean, to be sure, there is evil in this world, and it's definitely got a face. But these people that are in media are always trying to convince you that your problems are the root, are caused by someone else, and so they always point at things that really have no bearing on the problems you've got in life. Thus,
Yeah.
satanic panic. And I just, you know, I kind of want to talk about those movies, but I at the same time, I don't want to give those people that falsely poke accusations around. I don't want to give them a voice because I want them to be the exposed for the piles of shit they are.
Sorry.
It's okay. I didn't mean to get all deep on that.
No, my throat is just so scratchy.
Okay.
From my allergies are so bad.
Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say, Wolf 10 Media, you're doing the Lord's work, introducing your niece to classic movies at that age. Because I grew up with my granddad and my parents, with the Bay Area creature features, and then that led to classic movies, Humphrey Bogart, you name it, silent movies, and it's done wonders for me.
Sorry, I'm answering somebody in the chat.
That's quite
all right.
okay. And I appreciate you guys for chatting with us, and I like the fact that my panelists interact with the chat here because I run another stream where my panelists, my participants, do not like the chat. I'm just like, what the fuck? Where did they touch you?
It's because we're bots.
Yeah.
Dead internet theory.
So I just honestly, I think this movie is one of those films. If you haven't seen it recently, it'd be a good time to fire it up. There's really not a whole lot in theaters right now that would be worth you spending your $30 on, except for maybe The Working Man with Jason Statham, and he did another crowd pleaser last year called The Beekeeper, and that's a movie I'd like to talk about in about 5-10 years. But I really think that the Working Man looks like a real good film that would actually benefit from you seeing it, and you'd actually benefit for the fact that you actually had a fun time in a movie where you got a chance to chew popcorn and enjoy what was going on television.
To get back on the subject of Roman Polanski, like what that guy did was a dirtbag, but his movies, there's a lot of them that I like. There's Chinatown, Pirates, Rosemary's Baby. He did a version of Macbeth, The Fearless Vampire Killers, Cul-de-sac. That was the one with the two wounded gangsters trying to find refuge. That was good. What was another one? The Ninth Gate had Johnny Depp in it, and that was before he got weird, or I was aware that he got weird. And then one of my favorites, Death and the Maiden, and that has Sigourney Weaver, to circle back into the conversation with the chat earlier. It has Ben Kingsley and Stuart Wilson in it. If you guys haven't seen it, I suggest you see that.
What movie?
Really good. Death and the Maiden.
Interesting.
Basically, it's a stormy night in some South American country of unknown origin, and Ben Kingsley's character gets a flat, goes to this house out in the countryside, and wants to call for a tow truck, and turns out that the wife was a political prisoner, and he was her torturer during a coup, and he would play Death and the Maiden while doing unspeakable things, and so she holds him hostage, and it's a real tense movie.
So it's like a political thriller, basically.
Political thriller, yeah.
That sounds interesting. You need to
Substitute
send me
any Latin
a link on that.
80 politics, military coup or otherwise, and It was really well done. It's like one of those one room stage plays turned to film.
I just found a post that someone posted. I went to, Rotten Tomatoes, and I like to read some of the reviews from just regular people who've watched it in recent times, basically. And this one person gave it 4.5 stars. It says, my grandparents had this movie on DVD when I was little. While adding it to my DVD catalog, I took it and watched it for the first time in years. When I say this movie brought me to tears, I'm being dead serious. The animation is stunning and the character designs are beautiful. The casting choices fit each character perfectly, and the music performed by America is the icing on the cake. The metaphors laced throughout The Last Unicorn are so well thought out, and that ending is enough to make a grown man cry. I couldn't recommend this enough. I mean, that is basically almost how I felt watching it. It's very emotional. It pulled me in. I cared about the characters' arcs, except for, I love to hate the king because he was a total douchebag and an asshole. Even when he was talking to her about, I have patience, I can wait, because he wanted to kill her. And why? See, that was the only thing I felt was missing in this movie, was the fact that why did this man, if he says he enjoyed watching them in the woods, okay, that he thought he was going to die when he saw one, then why would he want to trap them in the ocean? You know what I mean? It was like something had to have happened to him for him to hate them so much.
Yeah, that was the one flaw of the movie. They didn't talk about the curse.
Yeah, I wish
So
that they
there's
did.
a scene with the skeleton.
Yeah.
So in the book, it's just a skull, but the skeleton at one time was his right-hand man, and during his search for happiness, he was thinking, maybe if I be evil, I'll be happy. So he his best friend and right hand, and then he finds out, nah, I still don't care. Moves on to the next thing. So
basically, he was a character that it was a real life serial killer, basically, like what a Ted Bundy or a Green River Killer. He's one of those. He has no empathy or care or want for anyone, and he does things to the extreme to see whether he has a feeling or a rise out of it. You know what I mean? Just like when Ted Bundy, they did this interview with Ted Bundy, and he said that after he did his first kill, that he had a rush. It was so high that he just felt like he could run 1,000 laps, that he was just so filled with endorphins, I guess. But each time afterward, he could never get that again. He could never reach the fulfillment he got from the first time. And they slowly just spun out of control after that. And so basically, that's kind of what I felt when I watched this king in this thing, and the way he's looking in her eyes, wanting to see his reflection in there, see himself, his murderous, horrible face, and see fear coming from the person he's looking at. And that's why I felt so bad for his son, that how could his son have turned out to be so decent, to be there so long with this horrible soul of a person that just hated everything about living, except for seeing other people in misery, enjoying other people's pain or whatever. He just was so. I was happy when the ground cracked under. And I know it sounds terrible and so unchristian like, but I was happy when he fell to his death. I wanted to see him in, because he didn't deserve to live amongst the people that were in his life, basically, at that time. And, it was just heart-wrenching. But for someone to write that so well, I mean, the writer who wrote this story did such a good job at portraying from the screenplay. Was he involved in writing the script too?
Yep.
I'm not certain.
See, because I'd like to look that up, because it really came across in the script, if that makes sense. Even though, like you said, you didn't really care that much for Mia Farrow as that character,
Yeah,
I thought the characters were perfection. I mean, they worked so well, because just like I said, I had empathy for so many that I was drawn in, especially when Molly joined the team, I was brought to tears.
Molly was the linchpin to
Yeah.
the whole cast of characters, because Mia Farrow's character, the unicorn, Alamothea,
Mhm.
represented the immortality and perfection and the magical nature of the fairy tale, the unicorn itself. It had no grief. It could feel sympathy.
Mhm.
When Schmedrick was saying, I consider you a friend, she didn't really, like, she couldn't.
Yeah, she didn't comprehend any of that stuff.
She
Yeah,
appreciated him,
Mhm.
but they weren't really friends. It's beyond a unicorn's comprehension to have friendship, because it's a perfect being. Like,
Mhm.
all it needs is to live in its forest, and it does its magical thing. But
Wolf 10
but it's
Media.
so
have a good
outside
day, sir.
human nature, like regular emotions and whatnot.
Well,
Take it easy, Wolf.
what's interesting though to me that brought out about the script, okay, just the story that was written. And when you get a script and you read it, you try to get the people watching to feel whatever it is that you put down on paper. And if you get the right actors in the right position, people will leave going, "Oh my gosh, that movie was," they talk about it constantly when they leave because it moved them in some way. Either they wanted to, kick some ass, or they were in love, or whatever it was, right? But this movie was able to do that, even though it was a cartoon. You know what I mean? It filled me with romantic feelings and the awe of life itself. Like she said, she didn't realize until she became a woman. And he said he let the spirit of magic fulfilled the prophecy to make her something that no matter what happens now, that she's going to live forever as a unicorn, right? She's going to live forever. She's never going to die, but she's always going to know what it's like to slowly lose your life and never be there again, and to lose something that means something to you. Even though she went to find the other unicorns, she didn't know what it was like to never have another unicorn in her life and miss it. You see what I mean? So basically, it's a metaphor for all of us about our journeys in our life and what we're striving to have. And once we have it, and we lose it, I mean, what do we do to say, "Oh well, let's move on"? And a lot of people live their life that way. They don't live their life. They're just living. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
They're existing or reacting, but they're not truly critically thinking their way through things.
See, I do. I try so hard to enjoy every minute of goodness that I can. When I see animals or anything, it's just so funny. And a lot of people laugh at me because of it. And my whole life I've been made fun of because I tried to see the perspective of so many different things from a different point of view and try to understand and put myself in that. I don't know, and I get hurt a lot because of it, because I put myself out there, and people take advantage of that. So that my mother always said I was too naive. Even as I grew up, she said I was too naive and I was too susceptible to stepping into things because I simply I have too much empathy. I feel sorry for people and I want to help them. And, and if I can't, I constantly reach out and say, "Are you all right? Can I do this for you or whatever?" Not because I expect something from them, just because I want them to know that I do care about them. And she says that most people don't do that. And that isn't good for you. She'd always tell me that. But now she's not here anymore. So, and I miss her really, really bad. But, I have to get up every day. And now I look at it as one day when I'm no longer on this earth, we'll get to see her again. And, that's what keeps me going in some aspects. I think a lot of people have that. But I feel sorry for the people that feel that when the day comes and they're no longer breathing, that there's nothing else. What a sad life a person has when they don't believe in anything more. See, I do. I do believe in more. I believe that there is more. I believe that I don't believe in sex. I believe in making love. There's two different things to me. And when I see people just frivolously going through one lover after another, to have sex, I feel like they're missing out. They're missing out on what making love should be to a person. That you could go, have sex with someone and actually cry because it was so wonderful, because it was romantic or whatever. And that's what I'm talking about, how I felt in this movie. This young man longed to one day have a family or fall in love and have all these things, but he was growing up with a father who had no empathy and no care for anything and just filled with hate. So he had nothing. So the first day when he sees this young, innocent, beautiful woman, he's taken aback by her, and all he wants to do is write poems for her and sing to her and just be around her. And even though other people would say, "What a fool you are, you're a dumbass," or whatever they would say today by a guy that does that, the fact that he did get to hear her say, "I love you," before she died, she died as a human, but all that thing, he finally did get to find out what it was like to earn the love of another, simply by being who he was and not being ashamed to be himself. And I just, there's so many things in this story that grabbed me. I was emotional basket case of the whole movie. It was like a roller coaster again. And I would watch it again simply because it made me feel alive. I mean, that's why I downloaded that song, because that's basically what it is. I'm alive and I'm happy to be alive and to try to enjoy every minute that I can possibly get out of my life. Of the good things, because there's enough bad, but if we let every bad thing take over every single minute of our days, we're never going to have joy. We're never going to have love and happiness, and just holding hands and walking down the street with someone and be filled with joy because of that. That's what I wish everyone could have, and that's what this movie brought out for me.
Wow.
Sorry, guys, I went on a rant.
You're good.
Going to continue with the characters.
Mm-hmm.
So we have the unicorn, which is, it's like the wild magical beauty of nature. It's perfection. It's outside of human emotion.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't feel the same emotions that we feel. It can feel sympathy, but it doesn't have the same inner workings as the human mind and emotions. Then you have Schmedrick, who's an immortal wizard. He looks really young. It's never discussed how old he is, but for Nikos, which he kind of mentions when he goes to change her into a human. He mentions that his mentor is the same to a male unicorn.
Mm-hmm.
The male unicorn basically aged to death, and that freaked out the unicorn, or Almathea.
Yeah.
Because they're immortal. They don't have to fear death. They can be killed and all that, but they don't age. And to be trapped in the body and she starts aging, she freaks out. It's an alien sensation. It's kind of like in Dungeons and Dragons when you polymorph somebody and they fail their role, they go into system shock. Like your body can't handle it. The mind of the unicorn can't comprehend death. And so Schmedrick's character, he's an incompetent and inept wizard. And Nico is described telling Schmedrick, "My son, your ineptitude is so vast, your incompetence so profound, that I am certain you are inhabited by greater power than I have ever known." And then that's when he places the curse on him, that he will continue to forever be young until he masters his craft. He becomes a true wizard. And then that's what we see in the end, when he, through his great magic, reverting her back to of a unicorn, he can feel himself age. The
curse.
So he's got the potential. He's just a screw up that can't get it to jive 99.9% of the time.
Well, I want to
And
jump
so,
in real quick but what you just said with Smedrick at the very end when he becomes a true wizard and he ends up getting the girl too. I just thought
yeah,
that made me so happy that them two ended up together because she was a wonderful woman and she helped him gain his strength to believe in himself. And I really love that. I really love that their character arcs of them two coming together. So go ahead. Hold on, so now.
Molly couldn't really stand him in the story, and he kind of grew on her.
Mhm.
And then it was kind of left undecided whether, are they going to pursue this thing or are they just really good friends? And so in the sequel, to hear that they're still together after all this time, it's really cool because Lear becomes king, and then he has like memory issues. He forgets stuff, so they're there to remind him, and it's kind of comical. But then, where was I? Okay, so talked about the unicorn, Smedrick, Molly Grew. Molly Grew is like us. She had hopes and dreams, and she wanted to see the unicorn, never did. So
Mhm.
she got cynical and jaded. Met a dashing, swashbuckling bandit who ended up being incompetent, and she's stuck there in poverty, cooking for day-to-day humdrum, and it's like real life when you get stuck in a rut and you're doing the same thing over and over, and you're spinning your wheels, and you're wondering like, where did all the time go? My misspent youth. And it's cool to see that character kind of be the glue that binds the trifecta of good guys. And then they eventually come to the kingdom of King Haggard and Hagsgate. And Lear's just kind of like there doing his thing. It's basically him and 4 guards, and that's the entire kingdom.
Yeah,
And
that's all this.
Dad, due to the curse that the witch put on him for not paying her for building his castle, it shows his greed. So his main emotion is greed, and the only thing that made him happy in his youth was to see a unicorn, and then he was able to capture the unicorns. And his greed makes him want to keep everything that he enjoys, or at the time
Well, that was
enjoys.
one of the things I had a
So
hard time with. I remember the first time I saw the movie was I couldn't understand because as growing up and reading fairy tales, I always believed that only innocents could see a unicorn. That a person who hasn't really lived life yet, they had an innocent.
it was mostly virgins and the pure,
Okay, a
kind
pure.
of like in
But he
Legend.
wasn't. He was greedy and mean and a horrible person. So the fact that he saw a unicorn in the woods that he felt he was going to die,
He was a
I
better
didn't
person in his
understand.
youth.
So I just never understood that part because why could he see a unicorn? And Molly, a pure of heart person, never saw one. See, I don't know. I just had a hard time the first time I saw it.
Yeah, when I start looking at the dialogue, because like I watched the movie more than I had read the book, and then I picked up the book way later in life, and all the little tidbits of dialogue made me think that he was a better person in his youth, and then when he became king and was
Possessive.
the master of a city and a castle, maybe the greed was growing.
Mm-hmm.
So when he was younger, he was able to see the unicorns because it was a better time. Unicorns, they have that weird innate ability where some people can see them, others don't. And over time, more and more people are slipping away from, I guess you could say, quote unquote, old ways. So Haggard was probably, once he started becoming more and more like a king and a ruler, his greed
Yeah, I
took
think that
over.
also the
And
fact
he's back at a time where he was more. He saw these magical creatures, so then he gets this fire elemental of a bull to round them up, and then his greed makes him
want all of
right
them.
on the coastline.
He doesn't want anyone else to ever be able to see
Because he also likes the sea,
controls.
and
Yeah,
the sea is right there where his castle is. So now he's got all of his joy in one location, and he can sit there. But because of the curse, he can never be happy, so it's always fleeting. And then he has to try and find something else
yeah. See,
to
they didn't
occupy his mind
enough
because he's
of
probably
that.
gone crazy.
They didn't put enough of that in the script for a person like me
Yeah.
that's read the story and not understanding how can somebody think that unicorns are so beautiful and it fills them with joy and be so miserable, especially after you find out that he's trapped all of them in the sea because of the Red Bull, and now he's wanting the very last one because he doesn't want anyone to share it. So, but he's still so angry and bitter and full of hate that he gets to look at unicorns every day on the ocean. So I don't know. To me, it was like he was just he was trapped in a vicious cycle of hate. He didn't even love his own son. His own son didn't even bring him joy.
And his own son was just kind of a burden
He was
in his existence. It felt like.
It was horrible. That just was heartbreaking for me. I had a really hard time emotional wise getting through that part because I was like, I just wanted her to like him so bad. And Molly's character, when she's talking to the unicorn as a woman and telling him you're mean, you're being mean to him. You know, he's reaching out to you, and he's, you know, at least you could do is speak to him. You know, that type. She was trying to do it, even though, remember, she was the one that was upset in the first place when she became a woman, because she knew that she was trapped in a human body and that now she was going to start having human feelings, and she would never ever be the same afterward, even if she ever got to become a unicorn again.
But it leads for some really good conversation for the fact that if you don't have to have a value for time,
Mhm.
are you really going to love someone? Because the frailty of time is what gives weight to these emotions. The
Mhm.
frailty of it all. The fact that, like, you're not going to be in your 30s all your life. You're going
Yeah,
to
you
be
don't have
broken.
a short time in life to
Yeah.
enjoy the pleasures of love.
And so people that don't experience that, they don't comprehend that, like, at some point you're going to be your grandfather.
Hopefully.
That you know, I mean, people, you know, a perspective that just can't grasp that, it leads for some interesting theory crafting. And I think I'm going to play the elves more like that. The more immortal-esque fae that you guys bump into aren't going to really care about emotions. They're going to look at elder elves that express emotions like, wow, you've been around the humans a lot. You have become corrupted in your thoughts. No, you're not getting in our city. We don't want you to talk to our kids.
purity.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see elves being like completely against expressing such, you know,
You mean you're gonna
powerful
raise them
emotion.
more on like a Vulcan point of view?
Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
Romulans were more filled with power and you know, wanting to have control over things than Vulcans. Vulcans were more into nature and in logic, in following through on things, not because of emotion. They didn't let emotion sway their views.
I
So
honestly feel that
Speaking of which, Star Trek.
Oh, we're in Star Trek now.
TNG, the episode of Sarek, that was written by Peter S. Beagle.
oh, really?
So when Sarek went to the conference and he was going all emo and mind melded with Picard,
Hmm.
That's interesting.
that episode was written.
That was a good
And
one.
it makes me think of Data when
Good episode.
the personality chip,
Hmm.
and he's drinking that alcohol, and they're like, "What do you think of it?" "Oh, it tastes awful. Can I have another one?" Like he didn't he
That-
didn't understand uh, uh, feelings and emotions, and here he is like trying something that he absolutely hates, and he's like, "Oh, this is a new sensation. Let's try that again." Most of
Because
us are like, "Oh, this
it's
tastes like
saying to have feelings.
crap. I'm not drinking." Mm-hmm.
Well, that's, it's
So
the same thing as a person that if you were raised in a certain environment, in another country, and then your parents move, and now you're like 14, and you move to the United States, and you're in a city, and you get to play baseball and listen to music you never heard, and get to be involved in things you never would have ever done if you'd stayed wherever it was that you were at before. So in a way, the writer did a very good job at making me believe that there was this young woman that was changed from a unicorn into a human, and how would she deal with her emotions and her feelings. And she felt it was best just to look out the window and look at the ocean and not try to think about any of it, because she didn't want to deal with what it was like to be a human.
I have to thank my time in the U.S. Navy, the U.S. Navy, so much for exposing me to what's going on in Europe, because I toured a lot, and a lot of these cities I went to, they have discotheques where like you go and you partake in like just jumping around blindly because you're white and have no rhythm,
Mhm.
and like that music is excessively irritating. There's not enough alcohol for you to begin to enjoy that music. It just is always like this terrible with some synthesized drums on it or whatever. There was a few places we stopped, especially in Portsmouth, that were very American centric on their music choices. And so, like, you go in there and you hear like Foghat or American Band or just insert 70s classic rock, Fleetwood Mac. And like, people are actually trying to dance to that. And you could actually enjoy yourself because it was one, I was used to that music, and two, I actually appreciate those musical compositions. There's a theory behind why the music changes, why it's 3.5 to 5 minutes. But the dance halls that play the discotheque, all I could think of was that like this is why we do drugs, because that music is absolute shit.
Well,
Sorry. Thank you, Navy, for introducing me to other cultures. But like, I would I would require payment to go back to Europe and set foot on the soil, because I didn't really. It was an interesting experience, but I value what I've got here much more, because I value what we have here much more. I like the music, I like the culture, I like the fact that the food has taste. The only thing I could ever differentiate in England was like, this is non-potatoes and this is potatoes. This says it's fish. I can't tell. This, I know the taste of potatoes. I've eaten them so many times over my life. These are good chips. But I don't know. Like, you could say this is tofu, or you could say this is beef. I can't tell the difference because there's no taste to it. Where the fuck? Where's the salt and pepper? And it just, that was my repeated experience in England every time I went out. Sorry,
it's all right.
they,
But yeah, it's the
they
same.
wanted the world for
Same
a.
thing. When you don't have something, you've never had it, and then all of a sudden it's laid out in front of you, how are you going to react to it? That in a way, the writer was very good at being able to put that down on paper, and they were able to get actors or voice actors to portray that on the big screen, along with with the drawings, to bring out emotion. And that's, people don't realize how much goes into voiceover work, basically, because you're trying to portray something without anyone even ever seeing you. It's all done by your size, or your scream, or your different tones of your voice and all that. And a lot of people don't realize how important
more
it is.
cutthroat
Mhm.
than like regular acting too.
Mhm.
Because like if you can imitate a voice, what's to say the guy next to you that can imitate the same voice? Like you have to go above and beyond just the voice. You have to own it and make sure that nobody else can do it. And that's kind of hard to do when everybody's mimicking various voices and whatnot.
Yeah.
I think if you're going to be considered a real voice actor, you have to have a very serious Jesse the Body Ventura, because nobody else really does that well. And I think if you consider yourself even just like a bumbler of voice actors, like there you if you can't get a half-assed decent, like Evil Lynn or Gal Gadot trying to sing a song, if you can't mimic that and butcher the shit out of it, like, now you just need to hang it up and go back to the garden department at Lowe's and collect your check.
Well, it just depends. Some people do voice work and they only do the same voice, because like the certain commercials for Dos Equis and stuff like that, that's, or the guy that does the voiceover for the guy that's always getting hurt on the commercials for that car insurance.
Hmm.
So, and he's recognized, his voice is recognized every time you hear it, because of that, because of their voice. And then you have another person that could be like the guy that did Bugs Bunny and a bunch of other characters in the cartoon. So it depends on what voiceover jobs that you go for, depending on what you have to offer. You
I
know,
just I just wish Doomcock was more famous, because I absolutely love riffing Doomcock whenever, like, there's an article about Kathleen Kennedy out there. He jumps on that like Oprah Winfrey, getting after the ho ho before it rolls behind a refrigerator.
hmm
I have
really
extreme news about the future of Star Wars under Disney's leadership and Kathleen Kennedy. I love it. I love Doomcock. I think he's one of the unsung heroes of the quote unquote the alt right, and I think he's far undersubbed. The
Yeah.
guy,
He's a snazzy dresser too. I
I
really dig the tunic.
I love the tunic.
Yeah, I love Doomcock. He's able to make you laugh. He can sing. He's very entertaining, and I think he is, should be way more popular too. But you know, it's just not for everybody. People are, like I said, they want to swipe, swipe.
Yeah.
They don't even watch a video to its full length. You know, they watch it for a few seconds, and if it doesn't snap right out, they go to the next thing. People have very short attention spans. So to me, I like, I sat and watched, what was the name? It was a movie with Mel Gibson, and it was, I can't remember. It was a swashbuckling movie or whatever. And I remember all my friends getting up and leaving during the movie. And I watched the whole thing, and I thought it was really good, but I wish I could remember the name of it.
Was
But
it the bounty?
I don't remember.
Sounds like it.
I'll have to look it up. But I just remember going to see it, and I liked it, and everybody else was leaving because they said it was boring. And I thought it was good. But, a lot of people just don't have the attention span to sit and watch anything. That's why I think football was cut up into 4 quarters, because men wouldn't even sit and watch a whole football game if it wasn't set up the way it was, to give them a chance to go get snacks and beers and smoke and whatever else, because they wouldn't stay for the whole game. So they were
I
genius.
think the problem with like cinema in general is that we don't have Don LaFontaine doing the trailers. We lost
Oh man,
iconic voice. Like
there's a black
years.
actor out there that actually does a good Don LaFontaine. Okay, his name is Fred Melamed, and he's the mentor character in a movie for it's called In a World. And In a World is about Lake Bell trying to find herself as a voice actress and being taken seriously, but because Hollywood's a man's world, she's a female voice actress, and so they're just like, oh well, we'll make you the love interest, or we'll make you, and she's always wanting, like, the starring roles, and Fred just kind of encourages her and keeps trying to fine tune, trying to get her to stop trying to push things the way that the inertia is not letting you go. Just go with the flow. And he does such a good job in that movie. It's not a great movie by any means, but it's an enjoyable film nonetheless, because Melamed does his best Don LaFontaine. And he carries that throughout the entire film. You actually think that that's his like real voice, but it's just a part. But he does pretty good. All right, I killed our conversation. Thanks.
Well,
I was
I don't know what to say,
joking. Sorry,
but
I gotta
people don't
gotta
realize
rehydrate.
how much work goes into voiceover acting and at matching up, because sometimes you're watching visually, you're watching the cartoon or the whatever it is that you're voicing over, and trying to portray the animation. You know what I mean? Because they might be picking something up or setting something down or drinking something while they're speaking. So they have to watch it, and try to time it that way. And it's a lot harder than just doing a voiceover for a commercial where you don't even, have to fit it in or anything like that. You know what I mean? They just dub it over it where
Voiceover work is important.
so. But I really do. I really love the script. I thought the script was really good. And if I always had to pick out one actress, one person from the movie, it would be Molly's character as my favorite part. But what was you guys' favorite part of the movie? I mean, what stood out for you that made you like it the most?
When Prince Lear said, "I will be that hero," and he tried to take on the bull himself. He tried to take on Fire Elemental, and he got smoked.
Mhm.
But he fucking tried, and that's what mattered to me.
The most unclimactic death scene.
Yeah,
He gets knocked to the ground, and then struggles to get up, and then drops. Just doesn't even get up
No.
fully.
But
But it was
that was an
impactful.
okay scene for me. But the fact that he didn't even pull out a sword, or anything. He just ran out in front of it and held his arms up like he was going to stand in front of a bus. You know what I mean? What do you think was going to happen? You know what I mean? So the fact that he sacrificed himself is the reason why the unicorn decided to fight back. Which she had to see something. She had to see someone she cared about be killed. And she thought he was killed, but he wasn't. But the part that I loved, my favorite scene in the movie was the one I get the most emotional, was when Molly sees him standing next to the unicorn and she starts to cry. You see her eyes fill up with tears and she's like, "Where have you been?" And she's angry. She's filled with emotion because she's mad, wanting to know why all of a sudden this time in her life, when she's dirty and shoeless, has nothing. And that's when she sees the unicorn. She's really upset and very emotional. I got very choked up for that scene. And to me, it was so, it cemented in me. Every single time now, I'm going to think about that one scene. But to me, that was the scene that I just thought was the best, most realistic with feelings and everything else scene in the movie, was the part where she sees the unicorn for the first time and realizes as a unicorn, without having a spell on her or on the unicorn at all, because she knew she'd been looking for one her whole life. So I thought that was my favorite one, my favorite scene.
I don't know. This movie's full.
I
Of
guess it's my
scenes. I think.
What's you guys' rating? That's what I wanted to ask too.
Chat, if you have a thought about the rating, we will read your rating aloud. Actually, we'll read most of your chats aloud. But go ahead and give those in the chat. We'll be more than happy to read those. Go ahead, Six Nations. I didn't mean to step on you.
That's okay. Give me a second. Gotta cough up a cat. So, having read the book and seen the movie a bajillion times, my favorite scene was, well, there's a couple. Now that I've reread the book recently and I can remember details, the scene where she's walking down the road and the farmer tries to capture her. Subtle differences from the movie. It's nearly impossible to catch a unicorn unless they want you to. So the farmer, thinking that he sees this horse, this mare walking down the road, she's been traveling, getting dirty, and it's not like being in a forest where everything's perfect and she's super clean and just perfect. she realizes that being in the world of man is not like being at home, and she's having doubts, not really regrets, but she's like, I don't really want to be here. This place sucks. No wonder humans can't see us. They're totally oblivious to everything. Like, she can sit there in the creaking of the forest and know everything around her. It's like all-encompassing magical sense. And so when the farmer is going after what he thinks is a mare, she's just like sidestepping him, and he's thinking, oh, I must have like slipped, and still doesn't realize that he's in front of an immortal creature that is absolute perfection of nature.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't see it in the movie. It's just her sidestepping, flinging his belt with her horn. That's more of a book thing. So to get back to the movie, the Creatures of the Night, where she's captured and Mommy Fortuna has used her magic. Now, she's a competent witch with extreme power, but most of her sorcery is illusion. So to have an actual harpy and a unicorn in her display is amazing. Now, it doesn't go into detail too much with the other creatures. You just kind of like see the townspeople look at the various displays. You got the old toothless lion, who's supposed to be a manticore, the gimpy chimpanzees, the satyr, the world serpent is actually just a kind of like dried out boa. The other two displays that they didn't mention in the movie was the spider that just, it's completely enamored with the glamour. That almost rhymed. Damn. It's making a web inside the magical cage, and it thinks like it's actually capturing the moon or whatever trippy magical display it shows, but it's supposed to represent Arachne from Greek myth. Challenged the gods and won, and then got the ire of a goddess and got cursed into a spider. So that whole display where the country folk are going from and seeing the illusion, that was one of my favorite scenes. The last
That's a good one.
part, though, which they edited, which is kind of dark, was the what was it? Ellie, the concept of the end, and it was this wizened old woman, and the personification of death, and everybody got creeped out, and that blackness and just dark pervading doom, and everybody got the chills and took off. And when the unicorn looks over, she realizes that it's Mommy Fortuna in there working her magic. And I'm kind of sad that they didn't put that in the film, but it's a kids movie, so you wouldn't want something like that. There was also a moment where the harpy smiles, and the unicorn sees it, and she gets a shiver down her spine. More detail in the animation. It wasn't really well put out there, but the magical nature of the harpy being just pure evil, the personification of evil, and everybody's afraid of that thing escaping and then murdering everybody. Like it puts dread in that whole scene. That's like the third chapter of the book. But as far as a rating would go, I would give it an 80% easily. With the nostalgia, I'd say like 85. That gets you right in the ghoulies. And it's funny because, you know, I thought it was just like me growing up in the 80s, and this was like one of the more pleasant times in my childhood before becoming an adult and embracing the suck. But even with Peter S. Beagle, he's like, I wrote the story, I did the movie, I didn't think anything of it. And then people started coming to me years later, and they're in tears.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like such an emotional impact on their lives or their kids' lives or what have you. And he's like, I had to reconsider it. And the story kind of grew on him because, like, normally if you're a writer, you write about something and then you move on to the next project, or you might touch back later on. But he was really struggling with wanting to do a sequel. It was like, this is more of a one and done fairy tale, and you don't need a sequel. And so it took him, 42 years after the movie to actually come to terms and get the sequel out there.
It's kind of interesting that you could go back to something 42 years later and manage to captivate and still entertain. Rarely do we ever see that in the franchises we love. And the only time I can accurately say this happened in my lifetime, because up until this point, I've not been a fan of this movie. I've never seen the movie in its entirety before, but this is a good movie. And I've got to say that the only other time where you could say you went back to a property that was popular in your childhood, and now here it is again, and it's just making everybody talk, would be Cobra Kai. Because there's other things that have tried and failed.
Mm-hmm.
All the failures that Disney's made, all the money that's been wasted on subpar sets or scripts or performances from people that really shouldn't be in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
But that was really rare, and I'm kind of happy to hear about this with Peter's efforts. Mr. Beagle did really good with this movie, and I guess I'm kind of inspired to find out what happens in the sequel with the other characters surrounding the unicorn. I was too harsh on Mia Farrow as an actress because her performance in this movie is really good. But I really feel that this movie has a lot to offer. And if you can avoid the fact that, you're letting what happened in real life pepper or detract from the performance of this movie and the impact this movie could have on you, take a step back and breathe for a moment, because that's what I fucking had to do. And it sucked. Like, I was wrong. But I'm still not a fan of hers per se, but I got to say that, it wasn't really her fault on a lot of things that happened around her life.
Mm-hmm.
She was party to it, but I don't see her being the main instigator for a lot of things. And I think she did really good with this movie. I wouldn't say this movie's perfect by any means. Before we get into my rating, Janet, will you do the honors?
Oh, Baby Girl, she's giving it a 9, I guess, 0.0. That's pretty good.
And
Crafting Gamer, 8.7 out of 10, I suppose. That's right. That's pretty good. And another 8 out of 10. That's good. Mine's a little higher than those three. What was yours again? Six Nations. What was your rating?
I said it was 80% or 85, including nostalgia. My only real complaint was the subtle details that would have explained a whole hell of a lot more. Just add. It was an hour and a half long, right? Hour and 33 minutes, something like that. Make it an hour and 45 or a 2-hour movie, and you can clear up a lot of confusion and add so much more depth. And then the tone deaf singing of Mia.
I had no problem with that.
That
was my only real complaint. Like, everything.
My complaints with this movie are just with the world building, and it's because it was a cut script. I think you're right on that, on the money. If it had been an hour and 45 minutes long, it would have had plenty of wiggle room to impart the things we need to know before we, wrap up things and take our popcorn buckets to the garbage in the middle of the theater and just go on with our lives. This movie begs for better world building.
Mhm.
And it's got a good script to it. It's got really good performances, except for the singing by Jeff Bridges and Mia Farrow, which I never thought I'd ever talk about Mia Farrow's singing ability, because I just never thought that was something I had to discuss. But I honestly feel this movie was really, really a good film for what it is. And with its faults, I'm going to rate it a 78. It's not a perfect film by any means, but it's almost a 4 out of 5 star movie for most of you. And I think a lot of people would benefit out of watching this again today, because it might take you back to a time where you did have the heightened emotions of a teenager and you did want to see a movie that gave you hope about things. And this movie does a good job of that. Uh, it does kind of give you this blind optimism that Prince Lear will find peace at some point. It does kind of make you sad about the fact that his father was a driven man, and he had his agenda kind of mistakenly seasoned, and he didn't know exactly how to deal with the phenomenon that was around him. Well, I'll just collect all the unicorns, and by letting the spirit of evil inhabit such close proximity, the Red Bull really scared the shit out of me. There's a part of that, where I do remember the scenes from the trailer animation, and I was like, I don't know if I want to see this. I mean, that looks like the devil, and so we never saw it. Did I see Secret of Nim in theaters? No, I didn't. I saw that on HBO a few years later.
Mhm.
This movie does a really good job of telling story, and I think a 78. I think a 78 is a very fair score for that. If it had been longer, I would have rated it higher. Hearing Mia Farrow try to sing a song, wince. Okay.
It's my turn now. To me, this movie had almost every single thing that you could have in a movie for entertainment purposes. I mean, it had a wonderful script, had a wonderful story, it had wonderful characters with really good character arcs, strong character arcs for all the characters that were involved. The animation was phenomenal. I loved. I mean, considering it came out 1984.
82.
82.
Too okay, still phenomenal. The music I just loved it. I sang along, even though didn't know the song, I couldn't remember them, but I wanted to sing along because it was beautiful music. I loved it. And the writing was just top notch. I thought the editing was really, really well done. There wasn't a lot of glitches or spots in it, considering you could tell that this was edited, the one version we watched, for TV, because you could tell where they stopped it and then had a commercial and then started again, because they almost were perfect on starting it right back exactly where it left off. But you could tell for that. But so I'm not taking that off of it, because I'm sure that was not in the actual movie when you saw it. So that is, I'm not even going to judge it on that. But I'm just saying I saw it in there. But it had everything in it. It had romance, it had fear, it had valor, it had everything. And the arc with the son, with the father, was filled with hate. They hated his life and hated everything about life, basically. And he wanted no one else to be able to take the joy of seeing a unicorn but him, to control that aspect of the world around him, because he was a king. Okay. So you're right. He was greedy, but the fact that his young son grew up with reading, fairy tales and things, and just wanted to be a hero, because that's all he had. He didn't have a nurturing parent. He had stories, basically. So it was heartwarming. And the fact that he fell in love with a wonderful, caring, beautiful woman that finally eventually told him she loved him back. So I was fulfilled with the romance part of it. Even though it had a sad ending, it was still redeeming. Okay, I don't know. Just to me, it touched all the I checked off all the boxes for this movie. The only reason I'm not giving it a perfect 10, Okay, so I'm giving this a 9.5 out of 10. And the only reason I'm giving it that is because they didn't tell me what made him so bitter. Why did he hate so much? You know what I mean? Why was he so sad and miserable all the time? If they could just have filled that gap in, I would have gave this a 10 because it had everything else in it. Everything. I was mesmerized through the whole movie, watching it, listening to the music, loving the characters, why she was searching for the other unicorns. Everything is answered. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it because it was so well done. And the writer, he should win an award for this screenplay alone. To me, it was so well done. And the fact that you got people to volunteer themselves, like what you said, they brought their book with them.
Jeff Bridges optioned to do this movie for free.
That's what I'm saying.
On the phone.
That tells me, and I didn't even know that until you told me, but that I could tell. It's like I say it a lot. You can almost feel the love coming from the people in this movie and that worked on this whole thing, the writers, the actors, the people that came up with the storyboards and everything for this, loved this story enough to give it love as they're working on it. And you could tell they wanted you as a viewer to feel what they felt when they first read this script and said, we got to make this, we got to make this, we got to do this, we got to do that. That's how good it was to me. And I do recommend that your child be at least 11 or 12, depending on their level of comprehension when it comes to like a man having his face in a woman's breasts. So even though there's no sex, that right there, but still, I remember watching it when I was younger and I didn't really understand that part of it. It didn't come out, but this time, all these years later watching it, it was very sexualized to me.
To be true though, Janet, we kind of had the same thing happen in the Black Cauldron.
Yeah.
I remember the Black Cauldron had a body scene in it too.
So, but Flaty's in here.
I saw that. I want to say hi to Flaty. Flaty, we miss you. How you doing, sir?
Can't wait to see you again. But that's what I'm going to give it. I'm giving it a 9.5. I love this. I was so excited getting to watch it again. I didn't realize how much I loved it. I mean, I until I started watching and I'm bawling my eyes out and shit. It was terrible, but it was so good. It was such a good movie, and I really, really enjoyed it. And thank you guys for letting me watch it again.
Yeah. We have Soybase reasserting that, like, listen, this movie came out in 82. Yeah, we know this. It was a good movie. It was a good year. The only thing missing from this film, and that's sadly because he passed, is just really the voice of Jimmy Durante, because I feel that his character, he would have been one of the early opening characters of this movie. I mean, I'm seeing the exaggerated noses, and I feel that's the animators throwing some love his way. He's passed on, and they just, Rankin Bass used him a lot. They loved him. Another character that was in this movie that I wasn't really expecting was Nellie Bellflower. She played the princess character in this film, Princess Allison Jocelyn, and she had some scenes deleted. But I wanted to ask you, Six Nations, do you remember her in the book? Okay. Now, Nellie Bellflower. Okay, Nellie Bellflower is mentioned in the IMDb, and she doesn't really have scenes in the theatrical release. But for those of you who recognize what I just said, this lady was used quite a bit in animation, quite a few times. You might remember her as Princess Ariel from the Thundar the Barbarian TV show. And that just, seeing her being as part of this, and I mean, she was part of that, 2 or 3 or 5 day get together at the recording studio where everybody's just, sipping tea and just having fun, and they get everything recorded. Everything was recorded within the span of basically a week. There isn't a whole lot of stories of, we had to do some ADR, we had to do some after cuts. We had to do added lines or such. It was all pretty much done. Bam, 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 and that was it. Everybody went back to their own things, their own lives or whatever may be. Jeff Bridges probably reading the script for Flynn for Tron at the time because he does that movie in '84. But this movie was done so well that they spent barely any time whatsoever getting the recording done because everybody was on target.
That's because when you have people that love the project they're working on, they come to work every day happy to be there. They're ready to do their job because they want it to be successful. That's what I'm saying. I could tell just by watching this that it had love. People wanted to see this come to fruition because they cared about it. They cared about the characters. They cared about the story, and you can't help it. I can tell you right now. You watch a movie, and you can see how crappy it is. You can tell nobody wanted to be at work. Nobody wanted to be there because it sucked. And one of them is the one I bring up all the time. I can definitely tell you they had shit tons of problems with that. All on set and everything because nobody wanted to be at work, even though they were getting a check. But these people were willing to work here and not even get paid. What that movie that I watched with you, Darkness, Gamers Rising, or whatever,
Yep.
Gamers, Darkness Rising. Everyone wanted to be there. You could tell, even though it wasn't perfect. People were happy to be on set, and you could tell. It just comes across in the acting and the way it's put together. You just got a feeling for it. And I felt that from the opening scene, just like I said, when the music started and the drawing was, the stuff was moving through the forest. It was just the birds singing. It was just beautiful. It was mesmerizing. I loved it.
Yeah, the cast of this film was just amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some regulars in animation in this.
Janet, did you wear that shirt when we did the Life Force review? Okay.
This is a silver bodysuit, and I'm wearing a pink or a rainbow tutu
Okay.
with these socks that you wear over your boot.
Oh my God.
So you can put it. It goes way
Almost got the rainbow bright thing going on.
Their thighs highs that look like my rainbow tutu, and you put it over your high heels, and it looks like you're wearing like.
Whenever we do a review of Rainbow Bright, I know what to expect. Janet and leg warmer and rainbow.
I'll have to wear a vest with that. But I do have a horn. I took it off because it squeezed in my head, so I had a unicorn horn. It is. I made it at a. It's not a horn. Well, I could have worn this. Hold on, let me grab it real quick. Instead. God, I couldn't believe what this is.
Lady,
Damn,
you're
lady.
welcome here whenever you make time, whenever you can. We're not going to ever turn you away. You're part of us. You're welcome at the table. Welcome to stream with us. So, next week is the 6th of April. And for the 6th of April, we will be reviewing a perennial favorite around our house. And that means that Night of the Lupus, starring DeForest Kelly, will be getting a review. I'm going to kick off April in a laugh mode. And that movie has all sorts of laughter that's unintentionally filmed. So we're going to be part of it. And I want to discuss that because that's one of those movies that other people have discussed very rarely. And I think this movie would be a good change of pace because as much as I want to review RoboCop 1987 or any other really good film, I think Night of the Lupus is going to give us a chance to be inventive and just...
I thought it was Night of the Lepus.
lupus. Night of the Lupus is what I have here.
This is what I was gonna wear, because when you're on the walking around in New Orleans, you could wear this kind of stuff.
You're right. Night of the Lepus. I misspelled it because I've got too many friends with
The
lupus.
unicorn horn.
Okay.
Can you see what it is?
Oh dear God. No, I unbelieve. Disbelieve.
So what I did, I did now, but it wasn't going to. Told you I have tons and tons of wigs.
Night of the
Awesome.
Lepus,
Lady,
Killer Shrews, and Food of the Gods will be my trifecta for that evening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good movie. I haven't seen it in a long, long time. God, it was one of my dad's favorite movies.
Stuart Whitman, Janet Calhoun, DeForest Kelly, Rory Calhoun, excuse me, Janet Leigh, and this is a there was a series of movies about radioactive creatures that kept popping up in sci-fi at the time, and this is one of the final ones where that happened. I think this and Kingdom of the Spiders would be another good film to watch.
Yeah,
but
that was a good one.
I actually really like that movie a lot. I like that a lot better than Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
I never saw either one of those. So
part of
George Clooney's finest.
Wait, George.
Was it the first one or the second one?
Tommy. Yeah. I can't remember. Anyway, for all of our friends that joined us here in chat, appreciate you being here. Saturday of next week, we'll be going back to the D100 alpha test game that I'm designing with these two lovely people in the panel, Janet, Six Nations, Crafting Gamer, and who am I forgetting?
Nerdy Org.
Nerdy Ogre. And we'll also be having the NPCs in play. That once was we had Flady in the game, and his life got busy, so we still keep Quinn around for a lot of things. And then we've got the occasional appearance. Say again?
Keep him alive.
He's not dead yet.
No, I'm not dead yet. No, we've got some other friends, but I appreciate you guys being here. Janet, what are you doing this week?
Well, I'll be doing a Thursday night show. I'm not for sure which guests I'm going to have yet, because it seems like sometimes they just don't show up, and I have to get somebody in a really fast. And then I'll have the Friday night shit show again. But Wednesday night I'll be playing on one of Bear's games, and on Monday night I'll be playing in Bear's game that he's writing called Heroic, and I'll be playing Mystic Mirage.
Interesting.
Because he only does 2-hour games. He doesn't do long, hours and hours and hours.
I was ready to run for fucking 11 hours last night.
Oh, my eye hurt so bad. It's still sore. I mean, my eye's still sore, but my eye was hurting. And my allergies are just terrible. As you can hear, my throat just it's so dry.
As much as if I win the lotto, like the Gamer Gulag will not be in San Antonio. I'll have to move somewhere that's a little bit less on the
desert. In the desert. With the desert.
I don't want to do desert. I don't like the excessive heat. God, isn't there like some?
Go up in Reno, up in the upper part.
Isn't there somewhere nice where I don't have to deal with like that? I like greenery.
What about Idaho? It's kind of like the desert, but it's nice. It's got greenery.
Well,
I could get
Southern Idaho.
The
Nations would kidney punch me for moving everyone up there. He'd be like, "Damn it, you imported more people."
I can't recommend the winters, and I can't recommend the Californians.
Okay, Yeah, when you classify people on the same level as a
Although-
fucking winter.
Although the conservative Californians know how to drive,
Okay.
Mhm.
these people up here don't know how to like hit the accelerator.
Fair enough.
Give them a crash course of 6 months on 101 or I-5 and
Yeah, you had to put chains on
Get
your
'em up
tires
to
in
speed with
Idaho, right?
Just
not
stay
where
home
I'm
with
at
what's
because
going
we
on.
only get like at most 2 to 4 feet of snow, but definitely northern. It sounds like a lot, but like
I know people.
I've been here what
Arkansas.
9 years, and we came up during the snowmageddon of 2016, and that was ridiculously excessive,
Yeah.
and it scared the shit out of my family.
Mhm.
But the subsequent winters, with the exception of going on the freeway, because that's where all the pileups happen, it's relatively doable. You might get a little squirrely coming out of the. They maintain their roads. They're not like certain politicians in certain cities, in certain states
Mhm.
that you'll be unnamed.
But it's funny because it's sometimes when we get like a foot of snow, which is very rare in Arkansas, people are putting chains on their tires. So I just let you know because I just laughed at some of these people. If we have 4-wheel drive, you can pretty much do pretty good, with that much snow. But they're putting chains on their tires and shit, and freaking
2 to
out.
4 feet isn't all in one spot. It's spread over the winter normally.
Would I get called a butch lesbian for driving my Subaru in Idaho?
I don't think
No.
so.
Okay.
No.
I really like my all-wheel drive Subaru.
Maybe in Boise.
That's just
But I don't go to Boise.
fair enough.
Because one of the first places I ever got to go skiing on a skiing trip, it was Heisey Hot Springs. Do you know what that is?
No.
Six Nations.
Is that up near Trinity Pines?
I guess it was. I thought it was in Idaho, but I might.
That's the only hot springs that I've been to.
Well, it was
And that
so
was,
cool is that we went out and they had these like hot tub rooms and they had different themes. You could have like 6 to 8 people in the hot tub, and they had like a jungle room and just different themes. And then they outside had an outdoor pool, and you're out. No, you out. There's a hot tub out there too, but you get out of the hot tub and you get in the heated pool and it's snowing. So you stand up and it's snowing on you, and you can see deer and stuff on the hill. It was beautiful. I just loved it. And it was the first place I ever got to go skiing, snow skiing. I loved it. I thought it was great. And then there was Jackpot, Nevada that we used to go to. We take a bus and go there to gamble,
Nice.
for overnight, and a bus would take you and drop you off so you didn't have to drive. So you could drink on the bus and everything. It was great. So I thought Idaho was pretty fun.
My
And-
rampant alcoholism notwithstanding, I already forgot what I was referencing.
Hmm.
It's all right. I was just asking about the winters over there where you're at. I know you're a little bit further north than Six Nations, and the thought of 2 to 4 feet of snow a year just fucking absolutely not. No, I look at that thought and
That's nothing.
I'm opposed to that like a beaver's opposed to flowing water. No, I'm stuck here. Got people talking about Shenandoah Valley and Blue Ridge Mountains and such, and that's a beautiful area of the country.
And ticks.
I've never eaten better deer than in Shenandoah Valley. That's all I'm going to say.
Have you ever gotten a tick on you before, Bruce?
A few times.
Okay, well, you get lots of ticks on you when you go to the mountains.
Great.
Just let you know.
Thanks.
Unless you have chickens. See, I haven't had it. I haven't found but one tick on me since I've had chickens.
I need chickens.
So you
All right.
need
So
chickens.
I need like 30 of them.
How many chickens do you fit on a California king?
So next week we'll be watching the classic monster film Night of the Lepus, and I apologize about calling it Night of the Lupus. Having too many friends with lupus is an issue, but we'll be watching this wonderful film, and if you want to discuss
It's
that with
about
us,
rabbits and not about autoimmune disease, right?
correct. And this is a classic film. Probably could consider it a classic bad film because this is rated lower than the Riff Tracks version. Guys in panel, just message me later if you want us to watch the Riff Tracks version or the regular version. Either one would be fine for me. But I'm looking forward to seeing this because I've heard about this movie. My mother hated this film. I don't know what happened to her, but she's seen some bad movies. Maybe my dad has had her watch bad sci-fi before. I
My
don't.
dad loved this movie.
I'm looking forward to it because I just want to see.
Saturdays. It's
I want to see
look,
Creed Dr. McCoy.
this movie, we
Giant
could put on television.
rabbits.
Oh man, I haven't seen him in years. But no, this movie looks fucking awesome. And did I just see a flamethrower? Yay! All right. Come by next week. Enjoy this film with us, and we will see you then. Thank you so much for being part of today's show. And you